Alright, I want to show you guys how to do a couple compositing things using the color page, some power windows, and a couple plugins. I was messing around with Steve Buscemi characters. So we went from Randall looking like this to like that, and Wolfie looking like this to looking like this. So what I did was a combination of stacking some layers and some power windows. So let's look at the first one here. So for starters, our source here is this overlay of Steve Buscemi and this Randall pick. So Randall's our base layer, and then I have 3 layers, one for each eye and one for the mouth. So let's go through these layers and I'll show you how to do it. So base layer is left alone. I got a little bit of saturation. Layer 1 is this eye here. So essentially with the Steve Buscemi character overlaid over top, if we get rid of this output here and hit Z, you can see he's kind of lined up to the eye. And you can do that over here in the color page by just going over here to the sizing node in the middle. And then you can move them around like we have here, and that can align your subject. And that actually translates to our transform right here on the edit page. So all these numbers correlate as long as you're on this node here, which says input sizing, and we go back to that node, you can see the pan and the tilt and stuff all apply. So now we have his eye basically in the right position. What I did was use this power window here to zoom in on the eye. I used a gradient tool, and then I connected that with the alpha out. If you don't see this little blue dot, right click and choose add alpha output, and you just drag the blue out of your last node into there, and that gives you your alpha output. Of course, if we inverted it, it would cut the green eye out of Randall. And then if you want to turn your overlay off, which is showing us the power window, you can hit Shift tilde, or you can click this little part here. It goes on and off. If you hit off, or back to power window. So this helps. And then if you have a secondary output, you can kind of see exactly what's going on with your output here. So that's the first eye. And all we did was do one alpha output, no plugin on that one. Node number 3 here is this eye on this side. So same thing. This is a whole other image. So if we disconnect that, you can see this Steve Buscemi image is actually rotated and brought up to here. So basically brought the eye over each other. Now you can do that. I'm going to get rid of this last layer here. If you grab one of your layers, you can always pull your opacity down here like this. And that way you can see both at the same time. And then I put it back to normal. So if you're trying to line something up, that's a useful tip. So now that the eyes basically are overlaying each other, I'm going to add the alpha output. And now we could see, we go back and forth on the invert, what we're looking at. And then since his eyelid's pretty closed on this side of the character, I went pretty tight along the proximity of the eye here. So that takes care of both eyes. And then our last node, I'm going to turn that back on, is the mouth here. So this is the mouth. Now this node, I actually changed the composite mode here to foreground and brought the opacity down because I wanted a little see-through of his teeth a little bit and the texture of his lip there. So here we have a couple different things going on. We go back to the color page. So on this last node, it's just the mouth here, but I have a warper plugin and same gradient power window. But what I did was add a little bit of softness on the right here. So if we zoom in and I turn the warper off, this is just Steve's mouth roughly cut out. And then right here, I added a bunch of softness because I wanted to get that angle on the Randall character mouth. Now, this is just a regular cutout with the gradient tool again. So if we shut that on and off, I kind of move Steve's mouth right in line with the Randall character mouth. And then if we turn that back on, it's cut out. So this would be what it looks like with the opacity on and just his lip sort of lined up to Randall's lip. And then the warper plugin is just from the library. I typed in warp. It's under Resolve Effects Warp and dropped this warper right on. And then if we look at settings, I used points. And then I have show origin locations. So let's switch the overlay here Right now, this is what it would look like without any warping. And so it's not super convincing until the warp comes in. So right here is just the cutout of the mouth and the softness here. Let's switch our on-screen control over to Open Effects Overlay, and you'll see these little arrows. This is where the warp's actually occurring. So once again, if we shut that off, it's just right in the middle. And what you do is you just pick a couple points, and then you can kind of drag it around like this with these points. Now, these ones that are sort of off scale, you might think click a point right on the image, but I actually grabbed some further down based on what it was doing. So if we reset this, and once again, I'm going to change it to points, and I'm going to put show origins in the little checkbox. So if I grab this, you can see it's a little dot and an arrow. So the dot is the point of reference, and the arrow is how far you're moving it. So you can click them, delete them, grab this point. So now it does act a little strange sometimes. So you got to like click and drag to get it to go where you want it to go. In fact, I'm going to delete this point here. So click on a point and hit delete, and it will delete. I'll redo this one. So here I grab this point way up here, but I'm going to drag with holding down to get it to morph to where I want it to. So I was trying to get this lip to sort of line up with this side of the image. So that pretty much does it with just these points. I might be able to grab one more here, maybe bring it down a hair. And then this really works better with this opacity going on, of course. So something like that. So that's how I did the eyes and the mouth for the Randall character. Once again, kind of look like that, and then like that. And then with Wolfie, it's way easier because I only did each eye. So I went from this to that, and you could probably figure that one out pretty smoothly if we go over it. The first eye is just a circular power window. So once again, I moved the eye into place here. We shut the window off and move the sizing. You can see I just lined the eye up here and then use the window to cut that out. So same thing. There he is right over top of where the wolf's eye is. And then on the next node, another copy. And this one's moved over to there. So the eyes line up, and we're just taking the eye retina from each one basically. And then I just used some size and softness until I thought it looked pretty cool. Because once again, remember, you sort of look like that. And we just added those eyes in. So that's it. A few layers for control of each element, and power windows to cut out what you need, and a warper tool to shift it into position. All right, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you guys on the next video.